Okay, hi, I am Chrissy Flackard. I work at Burch and Cracchiolo, and I am here today with Mike Dahlberg. He is a construction attorney also at Burch and Cracchiolo. You can find his information in the caption above, and you can follow him on LinkedIn or contact him through phone or email. So, Mike, thank you for taking time to chat with me today.
You're very welcome.
I know that you've gotten a lot of questions from clients with the whole COVID-19 and businesses being closed and how to just basically different things with construction law now. Everybody needs to adjust. So it's my understanding that you want to get these few questions out there because you're seeing them quite often and you want to just put it out there and be helpful here.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So like every industry, the construction industry is dealing with the ongoing uncertainty created by the COVID-19. Do you have any general thoughts on the current situation?
Well, I think it's important that we not forget that we're dealing with a global pandemic, and it's something none of us have ever experienced. I have some clients that are still doing quite well. They're only being marginally impacted, but unfortunately, others are really hurting. The latest national construction employment figures that I've seen show that the construction industry lost 975,000 jobs in April, which is the largest single monthly drop ever recorded. And it's really a staggering number. The situation is evolving and the facts on the ground are changing constantly. So although we may start to see, many businesses have been open throughout, but we may start to see businesses, quote unquote, opening up. We may also, unfortunately, see increased transmission of the virus. So we can't assume a return to normalcy anytime soon.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big number there. What has Arizona done to help those in the construction industry? What have they done?
One of the small things that may have gone unnoticed from the governor's executive order is that for Arizona licensed contractors and registered architects and engineers, if your professional license would otherwise expire between March 1st of this year and September 1st, your renewal date has been deferred to 6 months from the date when it would otherwise expire.
So if construction-related businesses are open for business, what changes should we expect to see in the workplace?
Well, as I said a moment ago, construction was designated as an essential operation. So many contractors have stayed open, but others have had to close their doors. And so as they open up, the important thing that all of them need to remember is that they have to establish and implement social distancing and sanitary measures that have been established by the U.S. Department of Labor or by the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Okay. So if you're open for business, what should you be doing right now?
Well, the first and most fundamental thing is you need to protect your staff. You need to have a safety plan to reduce exposure. You also need to decide what ongoing operations are essential and then identify the individuals in your operation who are needed to perform those essential functions. You should also be establishing staff rotations to reduce exposure.
Right.
One other thing you should be doing is reviewing your contracts and reviewing your insurance policies, talking to your lawyer, talking to your insurance agent, and talking to your financial advisor, because what's going on impacts all of the aspects of your business.
That's good advice because not many people would think to reach out there. So thank you for that. What should contractors do on their construction sites?
It's really important to establish security procedures and requirements. But most importantly, you really need to be communicating with your clients, with your staff, with your subcontractors, with your material suppliers. On every project, it's important to document current conditions. If you weren't already doing this, I think on a daily basis, I would highly recommend taking video and taking photographs of the job site daily.
Oh.
Use your daily reports religiously to track manpower, your own forces as well as those of your subcontractors, and keep track of who's working from home if that's still going on. And you need to monitor the job progress very carefully.
Yeah.
Update your critical path schedules regularly.
Okay. What should they anticipate on their projects?
Well, you certainly shouldn't be surprised to see supply chain disruptions or extended durations due to labor shortages.
Yeah.
You're also probably going to see lower productivity because, unfortunately, that's probably a necessary side effect of social distancing. Many in the industry are predicting that there'll be price escalation both in the labor market and for materials. So project delay, project suspensions, and even terminations for convenience may become more frequent as well.
So how should contractors address those issues?
Well, I tell this to my clients in normal times, but it's especially true in the unusual time that we're living in right now. It is critically important to document.
Yeah.
It's also important to communicate with all the stakeholders on the projects, your clients, your employees, your subcontractors. On your ongoing projects, you need to update the schedule regularly and do what you can to mitigate damages. What that means is, or what that may mean is resequencing work if you can, and perhaps in certain situations, actually accelerating performance if you have the manpower to do it.
Right. You mentioned earlier the importance of talking to your attorney or your insurance agent or your financial advisor. Why did you mention that?
Well, when thinking about future contracts, we may see ongoing uncertainty, and that uncertainty could impact project financing, project costing, and even the time of performance. You may, on some projects, you may want to delay start dates or consider cost sharing on other projects.
Yeah.
And on some future contracts, you may also want to include escalator clauses for labor and material costs that are impacted by the pandemic, or even shift. Many contractors are comfortable doing lump sum contracts, but perhaps you want to shift to a cost plus contract situation.
How does this relate to potential claims arising from the virus related to disruptions?
It is really important to understand the legal landscape as it may relate to potential claims. It could be delay claims, it could be suspensions, it could be terminations. Contracting parties need to understand the force majeure provisions of their contracts, as well as the delay and time extension provisions, and the triggering events for force majeure and for delays and time extensions. So on public works contracts, particularly federal contracts, there may well be government regulations that address what is excusable delay, what do you have to do for a time extension, what happens if there are changes or suspended work, what about stop work orders, termination, can there be indemnification requirements by the government, and sometimes there may even be relaxed qualification requirements for bidding during an emergency.
Yeah. So I gather from your comments that you think contracting parties need to show flexibility as they deal with the current situation. Is that right?
Yeah, I think flexibility is critically important. Being home for the last 6 weeks or more, lose track of time.
Yeah.
But I've watched numerous webinars dealing with the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry. And the best legal advice that I heard from one lawyer and it was directed at both owners and contractors, was don't be a jerk. Those were the legal terms that were used.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
pretty
I've already
impressive.
handled a couple of COVID-related disputes that both were the result of a party acting like a jerk. A heavy-handed approach isn't going to solve the problem, it's going to exacerbate the problem. So parties need to be prepared to negotiate with the stakeholders on each project. And the remedies may vary on different projects because the attitude of the owner or the contractor may vary on those different projects.
Right.
If you're a contractor, it's important to plan how you're going to make a claim for impacts and to actually discuss potential impacts with the owner in advance. And if the work is in fact disrupted, you need to plan how you're going to complete the work and discuss that with the owner.
So how does this specific contract fit into this picture?
Well, it's important to evaluate all the steps that are contractually required in order to excuse performance and reserve remedies. So for example, timely notice is always going to be required, but you have to read your contract. You can't just rely on general principles. As I mentioned before, mitigation of damages is a fundamental legal principle. It's also critical that the parties adhere to the particular contract's dispute resolution provisions. And you need to be aware of any ongoing reporting or due diligence obligations that may exist. It's also important to understand that if you fail to follow the contractual terms, you could wind up waiving force majeure remedies, and you could also wind up subjecting yourself to delay damages or potentially liquidated damages.
Well, Mike, thank you for addressing some of the practical ways parties can deal with the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry. I know that people are really looking for information and guidance, so this is going to be really helpful, and I appreciate it.
Well, again, you're very welcome, and if anyone has any specific questions, they can contact me through LinkedIn or email. I am available to answer any further questions, and thanks for doing that.